Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman, and I'm really pumped today to have with us Udo Erasmus. Udo this is going to be a special episode. I can tell it's going to be different than all of the other episodes we've had. Udo, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Almost as good as
Fantastic.
you are, and I'm fabulous, right?
Love it. I love it. So I have no excuse then to be doing fantabulous, fantastic plus, and then some. So tell us, Udo, who are you? What are you up to today? What's really, why do you get up in the morning? As far as what are you passionate about
Right.
today?
Well, I'm working these days. I'm working on turning total health, into a teachable field based in nature and human nature. Because health was invented by life in nature. And in 200,000 years, or however long we've been on this planet, we have never formally put together the most important thing there is, which is, what are we? What is this? And what is it? And what's its context, right? So we're human beings living on a planet. But what
Sure.
exactly does that mean? And how does that tell us what is the most effective way to have a good life? And the other one is to turn human nature into a teachable field, because we know more about our gadgets than we know about ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's like insane. That's why we
Sure.
have wars. That's why people cheat each other. That's why people kill each other, because we don't know that we have built into us something that is so incredibly magnificent that if we were in touch with it, we would chill. We would chill, and we would begin to enjoy each other, ourselves, each other, and the planet.
Okay.
And
So,
we got a
yeah.
ways to go, as
Sure.
if you listen to the news, we got a ways to go.
For sure. Okay, so this is going to be fascinating. It's going to be philosophical and practical, is my guess here, both,
Gotta
which
be.
is not easy to do. So this is I'm excited to dive into this. Briefly, before we jump back into your personal backstory,
Yeah.
what does this look like, practically speaking, professionally for you? How are you implementing this? We're going to get into it more later, but just short snapshot of how are you actually addressing
Yeah.
those two things you just mentioned?
Well, one is it has to be experiential. I can't write it if I ain't living it. Okay. So that's the first. So it's experiential. And then I always start by writing. And I don't necessarily use the writing when I give talks, because I like to give them spontaneously. But the writing is good for making myself clear.
Sure. Clarity.
So I have like 10,000 pages of notes that I've written since 2006,
Wow.
just about things that come to mind, inspirations, insights, and so writing is my foundation.
Sure.
But then in practice, of course, it's always something else. I might be giving lectures, and I might be doing panels, and I might be traveling, and I might develop products. So out of the writing also comes a more practical follow through.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get into more detail there and how you're addressing, implementing those, really the trying to address those the problems you're trying to solve, which are huge issues, as you said. Before we get there, let's jump back. I know you've experienced a ton of adversity in your life. We really will only have time to scratch the surface, but let's jump back and into your backstory and what particular time period in your life would you like to start with?
Okay, well, I'll just start from the beginning. I was born during the Second World War. I'm 81, so I was born in 1942 in Poland, which was then part of Germany. And at the end of the war, we were refugees fleeing out of Poland, with the communists chasing us in tanks and trucks on dirt roads, on horse-drawn hay wagons, mothers with young children, no military presence. And the Allies, the good guys, were actually using us as target practice, shooting at us from planes. So wow. It was pretty intense. I was two. I just remember never feeling safe, so like I was like, I was
Sure.
very shy as a kid, never felt safe, wasn't sure what I could trust. Got
Sure.
into the world of books because books are safe. So you can
Okay.
read about a war, but there are no bullets flying. And
Absolutely.
I preferred the
Yeah,
book to the bullets, right?
absolutely.
And when I was 6 years old is when my mission began, which is I heard people argue about really trivial things, and it goes so
Mm.
intense. They get so into it,
Hmm.
and it would really make me scary. It was scary for me,
Mm.
It was made me so uneasy, and I said, "Man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony."
Sure.
And this little cocky voice had said, "And I'm going to find out how." Because I'm 6 years old. I don't know how complicated everything is, right?
Well,
And so that's
absolutely.
been my driver all my life. Then when I came to studying, I went into science to figure out how things work, because when you know how things work, you get predictability and that gives you
Mm.
security. So I went into science to how things work. Then I got into biosciences, how creatures work. Then I got into psychology, how thinking works. Then I
Mm.
got into medicine, how health works, but we only learned about disease. So I went back into biosciences because you learn more about health in biology than in any other topic because you're studying normal creatures in normal
Mm.
situations functioning normally. That would be close to a definition of health. And then I got into biochemistry and genetics,
Okay.
and that's where I ended up. And then I left university because I was still looking for something else, and
Mm.
I wasn't sure what it was, and I wasn't finding it at university. And um, eventually got a master's degree in counseling psychology. Did
Mm.
some psychedelic
Mm.
experiences. They kind of blew the door off my childhood,
Mm.
my warped child personality,
Mm.
because it just opened it. Oh my God, there are so many options. And then it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to live.
Mm.
But before that, I didn't even know I had any options.
Mm.
So that
Now
was a big
let's
thing. Yeah.
I'm just curious because I know there's you've already covered a ton that we could dive into for sure.
Yeah.
Now with the psychedelic experiences, I'm just curious because now you're hearing more and more, or maybe you're not because you were already exposed into this, but a lot of
Yeah.
us are hearing more and more of these, this micro dosing and psilocybin being used on these guided tours and different things. I'm hearing different,
Yeah.
different podcasts.
PTSD and depression and
Exactly.
anxiety and dying. When you're close to dying,
Hmm. Yeah.
dealing
Okay.
with
Yeah.
the fear of
Sure.
death and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it's getting, I'm not saying it's mainstream. I think it's still not mainstream, but you're hearing more and more about it. So obviously you were, sounds like you were kind of cutting edge. When was this when you were doing that?
1964.
Wow. And so approximately how old were you at that point?
1964. I was 22.
I'll make you do the math instead of me doing
Yeah.
it.
No, it's okay. It's good. I was good at math, so I'm
Yeah. And
happy
by the
to.
way, you do not look 81, that's for sure. So you must have
Yeah.
discovered something that's
Yeah.
healthy. So,
Quite a few things. Yeah.
yeah. So, okay, 22 years old.
Yeah.
I'm just a little more curious about this, the psychedelic experiences. I mean, is it literally you take some mushrooms and just see what happens, or was it a little bit more structured than that?
For me, the first one, I was with two friends. One of them in my hallucinations on
Mm-hmm. Mm.
LSD. One turned into an angel, the other one turned into a devil.
Mm. Wow.
And I was rolling on the floor laughing, and the
Mm.
tears were running down my face. And I was laughing to Mozart music,
Mm.
ha 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 ha. And then the music would change and the laughter would change. And the
Wow.
reason why I was laughing is it struck me as so incredibly funny
Mm.
that everything that I was so studiously and seriously looking for in the
Mm.
world
Mm-hmm.
was actually within me.
Mm. Okay.
That was a big insight. That's like, and that changed. I kind of knew it because when I was a kid, I didn't feel well cared for, and I
Mm.
didn't feel like I had places to turn to on the
Mm-hmm.
outside.
Mm-hmm.
So when a kid doesn't have a place that has support, either they die or they find support inside.
Mm.
And I found the support inside. So I was
Mm.
always a little bit inward, but
introspective. Yeah.
not like this psychedelic journey blew open for me.
I
So
see.
there was
So even
it goes because
yeah.
inside goes so much deeper than we even have any idea of.
Yeah. So even in the first 22 years of your life, you were introspective and leaned on yourself, were a reader, as you said.
Yeah.
But then the psychedelic experience is kind of.
And I had a good sense of humor, but I was quite serious actually too.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got a lot more introspective and I guess how did that change the way you approached life at that point? Was it
Well, and then it was like, well, there's 1,000 ways to live. How do I want to live? And then it took me about 15 years to figure it out. How do I want to live? Right.
Sure.
So, and then I got into, after that, I got, I was looking for a model, like what kind of a human being do I want to be? And I came to the conclusion that of everything I knew, the most enviable model would have been the model of the master.
Okay, sure.
So I got the red letter edition. You know what that is?
No, I'll be honest.
Okay, so it's a Bible where everything Jesus says is printed in red ink.
Yes,
and everything else is in black ink.
Yes,
because I thought, you know what? If I'm going to model myself after this guy, who they're still talking about 2,000 years later. Nobody talks about my grandfather. He hasn't been dead for 50 years, right? So there must have been something there, right? So and my question was, what did he experience that made him live like he did, say what he did, do what he did? I want to have that experience. Now, I don't know. It's like nobody ever said you couldn't. And it just seemed like, how do you model after somebody? Well, how do you crawl into somebody else's experience? Now, of course, there wasn't a roadmap for that. So I thought red letter edition, focus on what the master talked about, think about what that means, and think about what he must have been feeling for that to be an expression of himself.
So
and then I got in with the Christian group.
Okay.
That I thought they're all trying to figure out like I am, and we would all get together and we'd all share our stories because I was putting things to the test and I was learning stuff. It was really an interesting exploration. And I thought we would all tell our stories, and at the end of the evening, we would all leave enriched.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, because stories enrich us.
Absolutely.
So I walked in, sat down at a table. This guy swooped down beside me. And I didn't introduce myself. I just looked him in the eye and I said, it must be possible to see God and live. Because when I was a kid, we were told if you see God, you die. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, he loves me unconditionally. He takes care of me while I'm sleeping. Then if I look at him, he kills me. And it's like, there's something wrong with that picture.
That doesn't make sense. Sure.
Yeah. And so I was trying to figure that out. So, the guy who sat beside me, they called it the Jesus People's Army. That should have already been a warning to me, because I had army was not a good word in my vocabulary.
Sure, absolutely.
But so and I said this, and he jumped out of his chair, and his arms were flailing wildly in the and screamed at the top of his, "You're from the devil! You're from the Antichrist! Get out!" So now, so now I'm out. I slink out. I'm on the sidewalk in the dark in a summer night. I say, well, let's see. I haven't seen God, so maybe I shouldn't be asking this kind of a question. I don't. Anyway, I got really confused and really desperate, and desperation brings sincerity sometimes. I was I really want to know. I really want to know.
Give us a little. What? I'm sorry to jump in. What's a little more context? Where were you? How old were you? Where was this? It was
1970, so I was 28.
Okay.
Summer of 1970, and so I decided to do what I used to do to clear my head whenever I got confused. I'd go out in nature, because the pace is slow, and there's just something calming about nature.
Absolutely.
So I hitchhiked to West Coast, and on a beach, completely deserted except for me and the logs on the beach, and decided, okay, this is where I'm spending the weekend. And I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright from dead asleep. And there was this being made of light.
Hmm.
No label, no words, just a being made of light, but that being embodied a message. And I could put words to the message. And the message was, I am come not to judge, but to love. And
Sure. Okay.
I am come not to judge, but to love.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty clear statement.
Sure.
And my confusion and desperation evaporated instantly. I have never had a question since that day. What was the message of the master to humanity? I am come not to judge, but to love.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I realized I was thinking about, well, who was that? What was that? And it kind of was, well, it might have been Christ, because I was kind of pursuing that.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was, well, but maybe it's spirit, or maybe it's life.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out those three are all the same.
Same thing. Okay.
And so life's message to the body is also, I am come not to judge, but to love. We are loved unconditionally from inside by life, which is a fraction of solar energy. That's we can derive that if you want to go there. And that life is Christ. And you can have references to that when you read the New Testament.
So now, just to be clear, this was not another psychedelic experience.
No.
You just went to sleep, and then this
was not psychedelic. This was a non-drug induced experience. Okay. And it came out of, you know what, when you're desperate enough and sincere enough.
Sure. Yeah.
help from greater than you might come. Right? I would say it always comes.
Yeah.
But not if you're arrogant.
Not if you're not seeking it and humble enough to receive it.
You have to really want to know. And it's a good question whenever you have a question to say, I don't know, I want to know, please show me. So right? Whatever it is, could be in business, could be in relationship, could be in anything, right?
So that's beyond that approach.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So 28 years old, just I guess, practically speaking, it sounds like you didn't have much of a home. You were moving around. Did you have employment at this time? What was your kind of more day-to-day life? What did that look like?
I was homeless at one point. I literally, for about 6 months, I slept wherever I ended up at sleep time. I lived on a beach for a while. But what I did in those days, I did a lot of blue collar jobs. And the reason for it was I wanted to know what it's like to be in the shoes of the people who were doing those jobs. I felt like as a citizen, that would be a very good foundation. So I did logging and mining and geology and carpentry and house painting and drywall. And I babysat a fish museum at one point. So I did lots of different kinds of jobs just because, and then there's always the learning curve at the beginning, like a big learning curve, because you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And then by the time 3 to 6 months were up, I kind of felt comfortable, familiar with it. And then I would quit and go and do another job.
Yeah, I mean, you seem to take, I don't know if, listening and empathy and, to the next level, just already thus far in this conversation, most people, especially today, we're all in such a hurry that we might listen for a few minutes and, not really try to feel or understand where someone's coming from. And, you said, how did Jesus live and feel and think? So it sounds like you devoted quite a bit of time to reading the New Testament and to understand that. And then how did these other blue collar people feel and live? So let me get a job and actually experience it.
Right. But I didn't want somebody to interpret it for me. I wanted to have the experience. I wanted to think it through myself and come to my own conclusions. So
gotcha.
And partly, why that? If I look back now, I say, that war I went through, as crazy as it was and as frightening as it was, an incredible gift, because literally we got everything taken away. our culture, our home. My parents came from Latvia, so lost the farm, lost the country, lost the culture, lost the house, lost the possessions, basically lost everything except our clothes, our clothes and our skin, right? And what that did is I had to start from scratch because everything was broken down, everything didn't work, couldn't know where to trust. So I literally had to build a life from scratch. And part of what makes us not do that is we have it too good. And we're in the process of destroying what we have and ending up in the same kind of thing that happened during the Second World War. Because if we need to create that to become wise, then we will create that disaster ourselves for our own learning.
Interesting. If we need to create the disaster, we will for our own learning, you're saying.
For our own learning. Yeah.
And
because, in Europe, they had a First World War. When that ended in 1918, they had 21 years before the Second World War started. If they had practiced peace in those 21 years, there would not have been a Second World War. Right? Yeah. But what they did is they stopped, and then they shook themselves off, then they rebuilt stuff, but they didn't pay attention to how we need to live in order to be able to live together, helping each other instead of messing each other up.
So, right? And so you said that the war you were born into for you and your family, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting, but that actually was an incredible gift.
Okay. I don't know about the rest of the family.
Got
it. This is
only
my experience of it.
For you. Yeah.
And there are lots of people who went through the war who just, I did too. Like until I was 26, 27, I bitched about the war all the time. Well, what do you expect? I was born in a war. Well, what do you expect? I was born in a war. And then one day I sat down and I was just sitting on a porch in the warm on a warm day. And it occurred to me that through all my dramas and all my traumas, something took perfect care of me. And I had never given that a moment's acknowledgement. And I said, wow, life took perfect care of me through all of that. I've never acknowledged it. I've never said thank you. I've never felt gratitude for it. And I've never thought that this might be a good friend to get to know. And that day I said, you know what? I think I actually want to get to know life a little better than that. Because it's running the show.
Sure.
And it's been so good to me.
Yeah. So, and if you hadn't experienced that hardship, that adversity, the war that you were born into, you never would have been asking those questions.
I might have just taken everything for granted, just like we do.
Just like we are today.
We certainly take for granted that we're rich and we have, and we want to travel and we want to do this and we want to do that. And then if there's a lockdown, then we all freak out. Right. But for me, when the lockdowns happened, I said, okay, well, if you can't go outside, go inside. Go inside. And I literally, it didn't affect me at all. Because it's like, I don't have to be doing something outside. The most beautiful experience that a human being can have is the experience of themselves in stillness.
Okay.
And when you fall in love with that, you're free.
Yeah, because what else?
You're free.
Sure, because it can't be taken from you, right?
Yeah.
So we got to age 28, and then now you're 81. Let's fast forward through a few decades here. I know we're gonna gloss over a ton of things.
Well, we might have to do two of these.
There you go. We'll have to bring you back, but give us kind of if you want to call it highlights, lowlights. Walk us through from say 30 to 80 as far as just the rest of your story.
Yeah. Okay. So then it became a memory. This experience that I had became a memory, and so then it was like, gee, I'd like to live in that presence on a moment-to-moment basis. And that question took me to someone who showed me a stillness practice that I've been now doing for over 50 years. And fundamentally, this goes back to, seek first the kingdom, which is within you, because it's all in the book, right? And then everything else will start working better.
Okay.
So then I did that, and then I got married, and we had 3 kids, and my marriage broke up.
Okay.
And I was really upset, and I had just begun to do this practice that leads to peace and unconditional love. So I wasn't as very good at it, and I was so upset. Sure. And I took a job as a pesticide sprayer.
Okay.
Because I wanted to kill something, and pesticides kill things. In fact, that's the only reason we make them, to kill insects or animals or plants, weeds, stuff like that.
Sure.
So I did it.
That's actually why you took the job, because you had this.
That's why I took the job. I had the license from a gardening job I had done.
Okay.
And I was really careless. For 3 years, I walked barefoot over the lawns I sprayed. The skin peeled off the bottom of my feet, so I started wearing boots. But it was a summer job. I did it in a bathing suit, and the wind would drift the spray on my back. And somebody asked me, "Aren't you worried you're going to get poisoned?" I said, "Nah, I'm immune." And then after 3 years, I got poisoned. So then I went to a doctor and said, "What do you got for pests?" I got cramps, nausea, dizziness, and my energy, like at 38, was down through the floor. I literally walked around a city block. I would have to sit down and rest.
And you think that was from the pesticides?
Was absolutely from the pesticide poisoning. So I went to the doctor. "What do you have?" She said, "Nothing." And at that point, the penny dropped for me. Oh, my health is really is my responsibility. And so I went into the research, because I had the background in biochemistry and genetics, and read everything I could on nutrition and health, nutrition and disease, because the idea is the body's made out of food, and it's always turning over. 98% of your body turns over every year. You don't even notice. And if something goes wrong with you physically, then all you need to do is raise your standard of intake of your food and your water and your air. And in 1 year, you can have rebuilt your body 98% to a higher standard. That's called healing. That's why healing is possible, because it's always turning over. And so, and then I got stuck on oils, because that was the most confusing area. So I read a study, omega-6 is an essential nutrient, which means you can't make it, you have to have it, you got to get it from outside. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. But if you bring it back before you die, all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. So omega-6 is an essential nutrient, you have to have it. And the very next study I read said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And my head exploded.
Yeah, not that cancer is funny, but absolutely, it's.
How can that be true?
Yeah,
I have to have it for health, and then it kills me.
Right.
That's like same like that God story, right?
Right.
Loves me unconditionally. I look at him, he kills me, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And that contradiction forced me to look deeper, and I began to realize that they're the most sensitive of our nutrients. That and omega-3. They are damaged by light, oxygen, and heat. They need the most care. We give them the least care. And when the oils are made, even before we use them for frying, they're already maybe 1% damaged. And if you have a tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged, how many damaged molecules do you think would be in that tablespoon? It's a question for you, because there's a reason why I ask it. 1% of 1 tablespoon, one U.S. tablespoon.
A million.
A million. Okay. So the actual number, because molecules are very small, and I know you don't have a basis for making the estimate, right?
Sure.
And most of us don't.
Right.
But in that 1 tablespoon, you don't have a million. That's a million is 6 zeros. You have 60 quintillion. That's a 6 followed by 19 zeros. So
Wow.
your estimate is
Yeah.
13 zeros too short. That means 1,000 million billion trillion. So it's like 60 trillion times too low. And the reason I say that is if
Mm-hmm.
you were going to get in a plane to fly somewhere and somebody who only tells the truth told you, oh, by the way, did you know that your chance of crashing and dying on this flight is 60 trillion times higher than you thought it was? Would you get on the airplane?
Hmm.
I
Absolutely
told
not.
him, I was in Ireland. I told him I'd canoe back to Canada.
No, but I love this, and so I mean,
because
yeah,
what we're doing is we're underestimating by huge numbers,
mm,
always a billion times or more. We're underestimating the damage we're doing to ourselves with these damaged oils
hmm,
before we even fry them.
interesting.
So,
So
so
yeah,
more
I mean,
health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition. And then
okay,
there's pesticides in the oil, and then there's plastic in the oil from the
yeah,
containers, and then
yeah,
there's you fry them, and that you got to multiply the number by another 10 times. You add one more zero. Then you do that for 30 years. And you think
right.
those molecules, when they get in your body, are not going to interfere with what's supposed to be going on there?
Yeah,
You know,
that's
that's,
crazy
I have a
thinking.
bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you, right?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, and then out of that came for me, oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't get healthy on oils made like this. We should
Right.
make them with health in mind. So I developed a method for making oils with health in mind.
Okay. No,
And
I
out of
love
that
that you
came
don't.
flax oil.
Yeah. Okay.
And then flax oil made me omega-6 deficient. I got dry eyes, skipped heartbeats,
Mm,
arthritis-like pain in finger joints, and thin, papery skin. Those are omega-6 deficiency symptoms. And I then developed a blend that is properly balanced between omega-3 and 6, because that's really important too.
mm.
So that's kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I mean, most of us would just quit when they see a study that says, the two studies that essentially contradict each other. They just say, well, a lot of us will just stop digging at that point and say, forget it. I
right.
can't trust anything.
Okay,
Um,
but again, why did I keep digging? Because I needed an answer, because I had a problem. And
yeah.
I couldn't just put up with some ballpark
Yeah.
guess.
No, I love it.
So I needed that.
One of
And it
the
was
themes of
that,
our,
again, it was like needing to find out how to get myself healthy that
yeah,
made
yeah,
me have to look for what is
right.
actually true.
Yeah. It wasn't just for your, to scratch an itch that was just out of, intellectual curiosity. This was very
Right.
real for you. I mean, and very
Exactly.
personal
Yeah.
about your own health and your own life, the rest of your life. And so that makes a lot of sense. But and I just love the fact that, because this is a constant theme on our show, is just taking
Mhm.
ownership of your situation. And you've alluded to this
Yeah.
multiple times, and you said
Yeah.
your health is your own responsibility.
Yeah.
So that's just consistent with it's a very different story, but consistent with a consistent
Mhm.
theme among our guests that we
Yeah.
have on the show.
The other
Go
thing
ahead.
to add to that, as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
general point, is that our worst disasters have the potential, every one of them, to become our greatest breakthroughs. Every one of them. If we acknowledge, accept, examine, and learn
I love
from them.
that. Yeah. Okay. So that's really good. So, and that's hard to know in the moment when you're experiencing the
Oh,
disaster.
no, wait, I was not thinking that during the war, and I was
Yeah,
not thinking that
absolutely.
while I was poisoned by pesticides. My hands were sweating. I had
Sure.
cancer to look forward to. So it was like, but I, I stayed with the experience
Hmm.
and then said, okay, well, what do I do? They can't help me, so I'm on my own. What do I need to take responsibility for? And fundamentally, that's the process,
Yeah.
you know?
So, so on this show, we tend to cover several different types of adversity. In life, we all experience adversity
Yeah,
in different categories, and it tends, generally speaking, to fall into financial, relationship, and health. We've already
yeah,
talked about all three in your case. I mean, you experienced poverty and homelessness,
Yeah.
technically, and you were you
One summer
yeah.
I ate out of garbage cans
Wow.
because I
And then
wanted to prove because I wanted to prove that you could be on a fresh plant-based diet out of Canadian garbage cans.
wow. So and then you obviously experienced major health challenges as well, and then you
Yeah.
experienced relationship challenges with
Yeah.
your divorce, and um
Yeah.
so walk us through the kind of the remaining, if not, the most recent, I should say, say 10 to 20 years of your life, and then we'll get
Yeah.
into what you're up to now
Yeah.
in more detail.
Okay. So then from oils,
Yeah.
so I developed a method for making oils with health in mind, and I got an
Yeah.
award for doing it because I started an industry. And I have no business background. I have good biochemistry and science background, no business background. But
Yeah.
when I realized 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3s,
Yeah.
but they're essential, it was like, and they're super, super sensitive, way more sensitive than the cooking oils, 5 times more sensitive than omega-6. And I thought, okay, if we could make them with health in mind and bring them back to the population undamaged, oh my God, we could help almost everybody.
Hmm.
And when you
Yeah.
can help, when you can
Yeah.
help people, I think all your
Yeah.
listeners, viewers,
Yeah.
that when you help somebody,
Yeah.
it feels good in your heart.
Absolutely.
It feels good. And I got so enthusiastic. Oh my God, we could help so many people. And we
Yeah.
got so inspired. We started from scratch, in a van without air conditioning. I was sleeping on the floor, and we did 101 days, 85 cities, 35 states, 17,000 miles by road. Hottest months of the year, no air conditioning. And we were
Wow.
just on fire to tell the story, and everybody got excited because of our excitement.
Yeah.
And flaxseed oil, which was a brand new thing,
Yeah.
became the second highest selling oil in the natural foods industry where we were active in 2 years.
Wow.
All and enthusiasm. So I wrote a note on Facebook yesterday. Somebody said, if somebody tells you they want to do something, what would you tell them? And I said, I would tell them not to do it unless their passion makes it impossible for them to hear me. Right? Because
Yeah.
passion is what gets things done. It's not
Sure.
what gets paid for gets done. Passion is what gets things done.
Yeah,
I was
let's
broke.
actually let's talk about that for a minute, because
Yeah.
we bring that up on the show quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
And again, this show is for entrepreneurs or people who are interested in small business and entrepreneurship, and I love the fact that you weren't focused on serving yourself. Really, you were focused on helping and serving others.
Yeah.
But what's your view on following your passion versus following the opportunity and listening to sort of the market and where where other people are saying they have a problem? In other words, a lot of people say, oh, follow your heart, follow your passion, and you'll make lots of money and you'll be successful. But you have a pretty good counter argument to that, which says you can ruin your passion, ruin your hobby if you try to squeeze every dollar out of it. And you're not really, if you're following your passion, you're really only focused on yourself and what pleases you, as opposed to, in your case, you were passionate about helping others. But what's your view on if you're going to start a business, and you're going to try to solve a problem and make some money from it, right? What's your view on following your passion versus listening to what the problems are out there?
Well, I think looking at the market is safer.
Okay.
We started doing something. There wasn't a market for flax oil. Nobody was asking for flax oil.
Yeah.
So if you're going to create a market, you need more passion than you need if you're just going to follow a market, right?
Sure.
But the two are always related, because somewhere along the line, your wild-eyed, bushy-tailed enthusiasm has to bring something practical.
Sure. Exactly.
Into being
That's right.
too. So you're always got both of them.
Yeah.
But if we'd have asked the bean counters whether we should make flax oil, they would have all said, don't do it.
Absolutely not. Right.
And I moved in with my mother
Hmm.
when
Okay.
I was 41 by that time.
Okay.
I moved in with my mother to write the book that took me
Mm.
6 years, a book on fats. It's now called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. It's pretty much
Okay.
the tome on fats. And basically because I wanted to pursue it, and I got room and board. And I was able to help her. She had a stroke at one point, and so I was able to help her because I was living there. But you basically, if the passion is strong enough, you'll find the situation that allows you to see it through. But the passion has to be real. It can't just be, oh wow.
Sure. No,
Oh
that's
wow. Or some people say, oh wow, I'm really inspired. No, it has to be wild-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it has to fit you.
Sure.
You know, like that fit me perfectly because I had the background, I had the interest, and I liked that kind of,
Sure.
so your passion has to fit your personality as well.
Yeah.
And your experience and your talents.
Sure.
Right.
That's a great point, because we're all created differently. So you do have to play to your strengths and how you're wired, if you will.
For sure. Yeah.
So, okay. Now so you went on this when you were doing this tour, and I think you said 35 states. What were you actually doing on this tour?
We're telling everybody who could listen or who was willing to listen about flax oil and omega-3s and the
was
benefits
this
from making
a megaphone?
oils.
I mean, how were you telling it? Going to health food stores, or what was your?
We had we everything. We had somebody who helped us with the logistics, and we had as few as 2 people and as many as 1,500 on that tour. But we literally talked to everybody.
Gotcha.
So it was like, when we had 2 people, we went for coffee in a restaurant, and we did it over coffee.
So you're just getting that swell of, you're spreading the passion and getting kind of that enthusiasm to build.
And the story was good, but what carried it was the enthusiasm, and everybody wanted to work with us. And so then we had, so for instance, everybody wanted to carry the oil, the distributors. Can we carry your oil? So I'd have an interview with them. The first interview was, do you have refrigeration in your storage facility?
Yeah.
Because the oil is best refrigerated.
Gotcha.
Oils are very sensitive, so refrigeration is important. So we set that standard. Do you have it? If he said yes, I would pass him over to the driver who was doing the deals and see if they could make a deal. If they said no, my second question was, are you willing to bring it in? And if they said yes, I'd say, well, call us when you have it.
When you have refrigeration.
When you've brought refrigeration in.
Right. Understood. Yeah.
And if they said no, I said, this is a good time to end the interview. We would not do business with people who would not take care of our precious oil.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So we had set standards.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we still hold to those standards. This was like 1988 was the big tour through the US.
Wow. Yeah.
And we still hold those standards.
That's great. It reminds me, I went through a little craft beer phase for a bit there, and a lot of the high-end brewers, they will not distribute, or if they do, it's very localized, because they don't want their product sitting there for 6 months. This IPA sitting there on the shelf of some liquor store for 6 months, and then somebody gets the product and it's terrible. Just keeping the control of the actual product, because because they have such high standards, and they'd rather sell a lot fewer cans of beer than ruin the actual product. So that's
oils are like that. They're even more sensitive to damage.
Sure.
And the taste gets worse when they get damaged.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So they need that more than any other food. They need that care any more than any other food. And because we make them with care, people get results. So a lot of our marketing was word of mouth. Because people noticed, because it's the most neglected area, and omega-3s are the most often too low nutrient probably in the world. And when you get them right and they're made right and you get the balance right and you do everything right, people get results.
So practically speaking, for someone out there, whether they're an entrepreneur or not, can you take I've seen a lot more companies who do, and I have worked with one who do testing, blood tests, and other kinds of tests to get your to really measure your own nutrient breakdown, I guess, and DNA, micro, whatever else, all kinds of different technical terms and ways to measure your the elements in your body. So is there a way for someone to practically do that, or
there is, but it's confusing. Yeah, you can get a plasma fatty acids, or red blood cell fatty acids, or fat deposit fatty acids, and you're going to get different answers. One is what you're doing today, red blood cells the last 120 days, and fat deposits what you've done through over the past 2 years. So that people would send me these tests and say, what does it mean?
Right.
Because the doctors couldn't figure it out. It's like they didn't know what it meant. So what we didn't do that at the beginning, of course, we didn't do that. What people noticed, and that's how we measure optimum intake, is that their skin felt less dry. Dry skin means you need more of the right kind of oils. When you get enough oil in your body, you're optimized. Skin gets them last and loses them first. So we would say take as much oil as it takes to get your skin soft and velvety, which is ballpark tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. But they got to be oils made with health in mind. And then these oils also help you detox oil-soluble toxins out of your body, because it'll carry them out to the skin.
I see.
And then you can wash them off. So we didn't do that. We basically said, take the oil for a month, mix it in food, spread your intake out over the course of the day, and see what you notice. Because it could be skin. You might find you have more energy. Some people notice it within hours. Some people take weeks. We did a study with athletes where we gave them a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of the oil blend called Udo's oil. And in 30 days, if they did their sport to exhaustion, their performance went up by 40 to 60%. We did strength and endurance sports.
Wow.
Huge energy. So that's energy is one. Then people notice after 6 months, their brain works better. They become better at computing. I was pretty smart anyway, but I actually got smarter taking the oil. I also was never good in sports and poorly coordinated. And I think that was because of omega-3 deficiency that I had pretty much all my life until we started making flax oil. And then my coordination improved. So my and my energy and physical fitness improved.
Yeah.
My mood was always good, but it got better.
That's fantastic.
So there's lots of things that do it, and every cell in the body needs omega-3s, and 99% of the people don't get enough. So there have to be lots of things that get better when you fix that problem.
How about joint pain? How about
better flexibility and mobility, less pain and tenderness in athletes, because your knee joints are the most vulnerable part, right? Especially knees and sometimes shoulders and elbows.
Sign me up for that.
Why? Because you just torque it wrong a little bit and you wreck your joint. Yeah,
absolutely. So you've definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then when that was done, I said, well, what's next? So the next most neglected thing is digestion. So in a way, I'm actually working the markets. In a way.
Yeah.
Right. So what's next? Well, digestion. So then we got into digestive enzymes and probiotics to replace the ones that are damaged when we cook our foods, because in nature, fresh, whole, raw, organic is how creatures eat. So we cook, we destroy the enzymes, we kill the probiotics, they need to be replaced. And then fiber, because fiber is really important for feeding the microbiome and also really good for bowel regularity and detox. And then bitters, which are good for digestion and liver function.
Okay.
So started working with that. And then I started looking at, say, okay, well, what else affects health? And when I asked the question that way, it was like, well, actually everything affects health. And that's what got me into what does total health look like based in nature and human nature.
Okay,
And so because, for instance, if you're contentment reverses aging. There's research on it now. There wasn't when I started, but there's research on it now. When you feel loved and cared for, the way life loves and cares for your body unconditionally and empowers you.
Yeah.
When you feel that, all of a sudden, it's everything changes. Because when I didn't feel loved, it's like, okay, what can I do that gets me taken care of? But now I feel taken care of. Now I feel cared for. It's like it's not about me anymore. I'm cared for. And if I don't feel cared for, I know where to go to feel cared for, because that's always inside of me. Okay. So I feel cared for. And now it's not about me anymore. And now it's like, okay, where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good in the time that I have on this planet?
Yeah. I mean,
completely change my orientation. So contentment, seeking contentment, seeking to find the unconditional love that runs the body is why that's so important, is because you can't really serve if you're always feeling like you haven't got enough. That's why some people can have hundreds of billions of dollars and be just as stupid as the people who have nothing, right? Because they got the money, but they don't have the contentment. And why do they hang on to all that money? Is because they feel that if they gave it away, they would feel even more discontent. But when they feel content, they say, why do I need $100 billion?
Yeah.
Right. The most expensive meal is 1,000.
Sure. Right.
Why am I not sharing this? Why am I not putting this to projects that make life less painful or more joyful for other people,
for others,
and that respect the environment and that respect nature, and that where we if you have $100 billion, you should be spending your life singing and dancing in gratitude for the incredible gift of life.
Absolutely. No, and we certainly talk a lot on the show about financial adversity and financial success or financial abundance, right? And I think it's a very important topic. Money is critical, and it plays a very important role. It's all throughout the Bible.
Well, it's good. It's a good tool.
It's a
convenient tool.
Agreed. Right.
But it's the love of money.
Yes.
That is destructive.
Right.
Not the money. So money is a tool. In good hands, it does good things, and in destructive hands, it does destructive things.
But it's really
spending. We've just spent $9 billion in Canada on Ukraine war, and we have spent $0 to promote peace at home.
Yeah.
And do you think peace is just going to drift down on us without any effort on our part? We have to plan for war and make all the gadgets and the gadgets and all of the, so we put an enormous amount of money into war,
right?
Defense or aggression. The two sometimes are used interchangeably, right? And we're not putting any money into, where's the peace department in the United States or Canada or Germany or UK? Where's the peace department that says, how do we help people discover the peace that is within them, that allows them to settle down and be good citizens?
No, and I absolutely agree with, just going inward, and the stories have been different with our previous guests, but a common theme has been that you need to go inward and work on yourself. I don't know that anyone has talked in such depth as you have, and gone in such depth as personally, as far as going inward. Maybe they have, but Um, there's a similar theme among other guests where we need to go inward to address, our own issues and kind of deal
Mhm.
with things inwardly,
Yeah,
and then it becomes not about us anymore, and it absolutely is
yeah.
liberating.
But
Um,
but but the other reason, there's a other thing, is your business is an
mhm,
extension of you.
mm,
And
yeah,
in the places where you're well developed in yourself, that's
yeah,
going to show up in your business.
that's
And
really
in the
good.
places where you are problematic,
Mm,
that's going to show up in your business too.
mm. So it's not,
So
yeah. So for
so
the
doing the
entrepreneur,
homework and
yeah,
becoming whole
yeah,
will create a business
mm,
that can run properly. So that's
absolutely, that's great.
homework.
Yeah,
To run a really good business, you have to do homework.
no, that's
Homework
very
is the
good.
work you
That's
do at home
And
within
we
yourself.
often throw out terms like invest in yourself, or
Yeah,
but what does that mean, right? and
yeah,
and I think what you're saying really is invest time and go inward and invest in yourself in that way, and get
yeah,
still,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that
See
will
how
only
deep,
benefit your business,
yes,
right?
see how deep you can go, see how
Hmm.
long you can stay there,
Hmm.
see what you discover about
Mm,
the magnificence of being a human being,
mm,
right?
that's really
Because there's
good.
peace, there's love, there's inspiration. They're all built in.
Yeah. So because
And
I can tell you,
when you're just like on fire
right.
with life for life,
Mm.
pretty much anything you want to do, you
You
become
can
good
do.
at.
That's great. Yeah, because I can tell you from and I know a lot of other entrepreneurs will vouch for this. It's just so easy to focus on the next fire to put out with your business. And I've got several
Yeah,
entities myself, and there's always some problem, right? And so
yeah,
it's seems more practical and more beneficial for my business to focus on those business problems,
right.
as opposed to focus on myself.
Okay, but it takes 1 second. You
Hmm.
have a problem
Yeah.
to ask yourself, what would it look like if there wasn't this problem? And then just to put that in place. But then you
Okay.
have to, then you have to have taken that second to
Hmm.
look at what is,
Sure.
so what we sometimes do is we just do band-aids all the
Yeah.
time because we're
Right.
going so fast. And if you want to solve all the problems, you come up with 1,000 problems every
Hmm.
day,
Hmm.
right? And then it's
Yeah.
band-aid, 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 band-aid. Oh, ignore,
Sure.
ignore, ignore, ignore. Well, that's not, so you have to actually suck back and say,
Hmm.
what would it look like if it was perfect?
Hmm.
And then build that.
So talk
So that's now from vision rather than from,
uh from
that's from
it's
carrot rather than stick,
yeah, right,
right?
right. It's less reactive. So I do
And
have some
chasing carrots is always more fun
yes.
than running
That's
from
true.
sticks.
Absolutely. So I do have some rapid fire questions, but very
Mhm.
briefly before we get there, um, talk to the entrepreneur a little bit more, as far as, say, the listener has a small business, and they're maybe they've got a few different small businesses they're running around, and they've
Yeah,
got a family, and say a spouse and two kids, and they can't find enough time in the day to keep their businesses profitable, or they're trying to start a new venture, and their health is just going to have to wait for 5 to 10 years, or so. Maybe they're suffering a little bit physically, maybe even mentally. Mental health is definitely on the rise in our country, and I don't think it's well, I'll say in the world, and I don't think that's just a matter of doctors are now diagnosing it more. I think it's absolutely on the rise. Talk to, I know that I just covered a lot of ground there, but talk to the entrepreneur in a practical way. Besides buying, putting in an order for your book and your supplements, what's the first step to kind of get a hold on their things, and on their life, I should say, and to
okay.
get healthy?
Okay, well, the first thing you need to know is that when you're physically ill, perfect health still exists within you. Life is perfect health, and life will rebuild your body as long as you provide it with the building blocks. So what you eat, what you drink, how you breathe is important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't cooperate with life to give life the building blocks it needs to rebuild your body better,
Mm-hmm.
then life can't do its job.
Mm.
But you have perfect health within you. The
Mm.
template for perfect health exists within you, no matter how sick you are.
Mm. Love
So
that.
that's for the physical. For the mental,
Yeah.
when you're mentally ill, it's
Yeah.
because your focus is in your thinking. But everywhere except the cortex of your brain, there are no thoughts. There are no thoughts in your kneecap, no thoughts in your bum, no thoughts in your heart, no thoughts in your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when
Sure.
you're mentally ill,
Yeah.
the cure for mental illness is to focus where there are no thoughts.
Okay.
Because that exists. So mental illness and mental health live side by side within you, and the mental health part of you is way bigger than the mental illness part. But if you're 100% of the time in your
right,
I'm not good enough, oh my God, what if the roof falls down?
right,
Oh my God, what if?
right, absolutely.
Right? So if you spend 100% of your time there, you're going to be very anxious.
Sure, absolutely.
At the same time, perfect peace lives within you. Perfect love lives within you. Inspiration lives within you.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom is within you. Calmness is within you. Kindness is within you.
Yeah.
So learn to shift your focus. First of all, know that it's there, and then learn to shift the focus, because then you can say, okay, today I want to be anxious for 3 minutes, but only 3 minutes. And then you shift your focus back into
so don't pretend problems don't exist. I mean, they do, right? And acknowledge that the risk is real and problems are real, and bad things can happen, as you very well know, Udo. But don't spend all your time focused on that. And that goes back to when I'm recalling when you talked about when you initially really got into studying medicine. You said that essentially the system is focused on studying problems and disease. Exactly. So that's
why I left.
Yeah.
And I talked to the dean. I said, what is health? He said, we don't know. We're working on it. So I'm never going. And then I realized in biology, you're actually closer to studying health. Right. And that's why I went back into biology. So I have a really good background. If you want to be into healing, into physical healing, really good background is biological sciences. It's not everything, because we call it life science, but actually we don't study life in biology. We study form and function. We never got to life. So we don't study life in biology. You study life by going inside and getting in touch with the life within you. That's where you study biology, real biology.
We're gonna get to these rapid fire questions here, but one last question before we do that. If you had to kind of recap, the show is From Adversity to Abundance, and I don't pretend that you started with adversity and now you're in 100% abundance without any challenges in your own personal life, but you definitely started your life in some serious adversity,
in a hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about financial, relationship, and health challenges that you've had. If you had to look back kind of over your 81 years thus far, adversity to abundance, how would you encapsulate that?
Awesome ride.
Awesome ride.
What an awesome ride. Because you don't know when you're in it. Sometimes you don't know when you're in it.
Right.
But then if you do like a deeper practice, you realize that in the midst of your disaster, you are still unconditionally loved by life. Now, if you could remember that, if I'd have known that during the war, I probably would have not been as shy and as worried and as afraid. Yeah. Right. And distrustful. But I didn't know it at the time. But if you're a little older and you've heard this, cultivate not staying in the perfect place in the midst of everything changing. And half of the things you call disasters are just things that don't agree with your expectations. Those are not disasters. You need to change your expectations, because in the world of change, everything changes. And you don't have the control over in what direction everything changes. So don't
Hmm.
even don't
Don't
even
try.
try that. But
Sure.
bring maybe bring something that's cool. Bring something cool. Bring something that's inspired. Bring something that's loving. Bring something that's in peace into that situation.
Yeah. So, and again, I keep saying that the last question to before these rapid fire questions, but
Yeah, yeah.
do you, I just find this fascinating. How do you view Christianity? You said that it sounds like you still think Jesus is life in some way, but how do you view maybe the Bible and Christianity at this point?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a different answer.
Okay.
If you trace it through like the solar energy, the through the through 93 million miles of space, filtered through atmosphere, filtered through green plants, that solar fraction becomes your life when you eat the plant, and the solar energy is released in your body. And
Okay.
that energy is also the Christ energy. What that means is every human being on this planet,
Hmm.
and actually you could add the animals and the plants too, is conceived immaculately
Hmm.
as a Christ child.
Okay.
And then in our mother's body, where I call it the Buddha tank, just because it sounds interesting, right? In the Buddha tank, nothing to do, nowhere to go, everything taken care of, pretty safe. So your focus in the womb, where is it? It's not outside. You don't even know there's an outside. So
Hmm.
your focus is at rest inside, in its source, in life and in
Hmm.
awareness. And
Hmm.
you're literally in 9 months of deep meditation on life.
Mm.
Then you
Mm.
come out, and
Mhm.
now you have to deal with the world, survival, got to learn
Mhm.
stuff, got to monitor change for survival. And your focus goes from being present inside, absent outside, to becoming more and more present outside and absent inside.
Mhm.
That's where heartache comes from, your
Mm.
disconnection from yourself.
Hmm. Okay.
Heartache is your call to come home, although there's 100 different triggers for it.
Hmm.
But it's always uneasy here. What I say to people, because we don't like heartache, because it's not comfortable, and we like fun, say,
Mhm.
no, when you have heartache, don't look for it, because you'll have heartache in your life. It's part of the
Mhm.
deal.
Yeah.
When you have heartache, sit with it.
Mm.
Quietly sit with the feeling and feel it and
So,
acknowledge it and
yeah.
accept it and embrace it. And maybe you could even be grateful, because that's the second greatest gift you've been given, other than life,
Hmm.
because that's your call home, and that's your
Mm.
starting point. And about a hair's breadth, less than a hair's breadth, deeper than your heartache, is your reconnection to your life, your
Mm.
Christ, your solar energy,
Mm.
your individual essential self.
Mm. Wow. That was I'm gonna have to listen to that again. That was fascinating.
There's a lot there.
But there's a lot there. That's just, like I said, I knew we were gonna get philosophical yet still
Yeah.
practical, and we definitely did. But I do, you ready for a few rapid fire
Sure.
questions?
Yeah. Just say. Let me say one more thing. Imagine
Absolutely.
8 billion people living reconnected to the core of their being, where they're Christ-like or master. That's also the master, or their CEO, or their
Hmm.
benevolent dictator,
Mm.
where that lives inside of every human being. Imagine the world if people actually did that homework and
Mm.
found their way back to that as an experience, not just as a head trip, but as
Mm.
an experience, as a lived experience.
Mm.
Oh my God.
Fantastic.
That's the hope for the world.
All right. So Udo
Yeah.
Erasmus, what do people misunderstand about you?
I don't know, because I don't pay attention.
I love that. I love that answer. Um, yeah. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would that be?
Chill.
Chill.
Everything's going according to plan.
Awesome.
And one day you'll know the plan.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you were given $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it?
I would give most of it away to towards people reconnecting
Okay.
to themselves.
What does that look like? I mean, who are those people? Is that an organization or
Uh, uh, you know what? If I had $10 million, I would have to create a budget because,
there you go.
but yeah, it's people who do things that, I know enough about it that I'm in a pretty good position to assess what is destructive and what is constructive.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, so that would be my first thing, but I would also feed some hungry people and, I would, there's so many ways to spend money constructively.
Sure.
That it's really easy for me. I would probably maybe give some puts to politics that is neither extreme on the right or extreme on the left. I would be always looking for something that goes in the direction of my life mission. There must be a way that people can live in harmony, and I'm going to find out how. Right? So that's where I would spend it in that direction.
If you could have coffee, I don't know if you drink coffee, but if you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would you choose?
That would probably be Jesus for me.
Gotcha.
But it could be Buddha too, Krishna and Ram and Lao Tzu. I would like actually to have a meeting with all of the people who mastered living. So I would want to listen to each one of them tell me their essential story.
And you think that's mostly the people who you just listed as far as spiritual and religious leaders?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because the spiritual leaders only had one law: love. If you follow that law, you don't need any other laws. Because no one ever kills somebody in a moment when they're feeling loved. Okay? So they had one law, and they also were entrepreneurial in that they brought things out of themselves. But they could have made arms, but they didn't. They brought love out of themselves, and they only did what works for everybody. Right? Sure. Yeah. So you get if you get the sometimes the entrepreneurs, they just want to do something that makes money. Right. But it could be arms. That's not good for everybody. Sure. Right? And then the other side wants to do all the social projects, but they squelch the internal initiative. And the masters were the best entrepreneurs and the best socialists both at the same time. And that's would be a balanced human being. Okay.
Man, this is good stuff. This is deep. What is a book or two that you could recommend for my listener? You can talk about your book and maybe one other one.
Oh, well, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill is my book. The last chapter is sort of the big picture. Okay. One that was very instrumental in my development was The Prophet by Khalil Gibran.
I've heard.
I was in science. I was in science, and I read it, and honestly, I felt a buzz for a week. It was just so different, and now it's not. But that's a good one. But there's, but the other way to answer that question is read lots and read widely and read about things that you're not interested in and read about things that you don't know anything about, and tend to get it because it gives you a sense of where thinking is and what people are thinking about. And that's helpful for you because it teaches you.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely dived into many different topics in over your 81 years so far, as far as studying many disciplines. Yeah, I think you're gonna keep going for several more decades. I think reading and studying.
So far it's looking good.
If what is one question that I have not asked that you wish I had?
No, I think you did an awesome job. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's good. It's good because you break in and you say, oh yeah, but I want to say one was, it's really good. You're a really good host. You're a really good host, and you're open, which is, and you let me develop it, and you don't try to push me in one direction or another. So,
Just
I
enough,
think,
little nudges, but no,
yeah, perfect.
not too much. Udo, where can our listeners find you online?
Online, I have a website called udoschoice.com, UDOS choice.com. That's where the products are. I have another one called theudo.com. We're just building that. It's actually still quite a mess, but the human nature and total health stuff is going to be on that website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, Udo Erasmus. And let's see what else. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm pretty active. I post stuff all the time. If you just go on Google and punch in UDO, I will come up on the first page because there are not very many Udos on this planet.
Pretty easy to find you, actually. And there's also udoerasmus.com. I'm not sure if you mentioned that one, but
yeah, the udo.com is just easier than Erasmus.
Got it.
Udo gets you to udoerasmus.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Fantastic. Udo, this has been really, really good. I'm definitely going to listen to this one again, for sure. So like I said, philosophical, spiritual, talked about physical health, adversity, relationship, financial. We went deep and wide on this one. So this
after 81 years, you get to do that. If you've been paying attention.
If you've been paying attention, absolutely. Makes totally. Well, thanks so much for spending your time with us today.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. This is better than me talking to myself in the bathroom mirror.
I love that. And to the listener out there, thank you for listening and spending your most valuable resource with us, and that is your time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.